Have you ever found yourself looking at someone you love and thinking, I just want to do something kind for them today? Maybe it's your partner, your child, or like in my case, your dad. My dad's always been the strong, dependable one. The kind who never asked for much, who quietly did the right thing every day, even when no one was looking. But lately, I've been noticing small changes, slower steps, more sighs. And when he told me his doctor mentioned high blood pressure, I felt this wave of worrying, like a pebble dropping into still water. So I did what many of us do when words aren't quite enough. I went into the kitchen. You know, food is funny that way. It's comfort, it's connection, it's care, served up one spoonful at a time. And today, I want to invite you into my kitchen as I make something simple, heartwarming, and most importantly good for someone I love. A low-sodium stew, made just for Dad. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Low sodium, doesn't that mean bland? Isn't that for people who've been told to avoid salt after 60? And hey, you're not wrong. Doctors do start bringing it up more often as we get older. But what I've really learned is that eating healthier doesn't have to mean giving up flavor. It just means learning how to bring out the flavor in other ways. So today, as I cook, I'll show you exactly how I do it, and maybe, just maybe, you'll feel inspired to make this for someone you care about, or even for yourself. Let me start by saying this stew doesn't begin with salt, but with stories. When I was a kid, Dad used to make the most comforting stews on chilly evenings. He'd toss in potatoes, carrots, a bit of beef, and we'd sit together at the table talking about our day. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. So now, it's my turn. I start with olive oil in the pot, just a little, about a tablespoon. It's heart healthy, full of those good fats we need more of as we age. When it begins to shimmer, I add in chopped onions. Now, don't rush this step. Let them get soft, golden, sweet. The slower you cook onions, the more flavor they give without needing any salt at all. As those onions start to work their magic, I reach for garlic. Not just one clove, 3. I chop them fine and let them dance in the pot with the onions. The smell though, it's like a warm memory coming back. Garlic has this natural depth that makes everything taste richer. And it also happens to be great for blood pressure. Little things like that make a big difference. Next come the vegetables. This is where we really build the body of the stew. I dice carrots and celery for that classic base. Then, I throw in cubed sweet potatoes instead of regular white ones. They have more potassium, which helps balance sodium in the body, and their natural sweetness gives the stew a lovely, cozy flavor. Now, for protein, I know many people go straight for beef, but today, I am using skinless chicken thighs. They're tender, flavorful, and lower in saturated fat. I brown them just a bit in the same pot, let them pick up some of that garlicky onion flavor, and then I add unsalted chicken broth. That's the thing, right? Most store-bought broths are packed with sodium, but you can find low-sodium versions now. And when you build the flavor from scratch like this, you won't miss the salt. Trust me. I add in crushed tomatoes, just half a can. The acidity brightens everything up. Then come the herbs. This is where the real magic happens. Instead of reaching for the salt shaker, I use dried thyme, rosemary, and a bay leaf, just a pinch of each. These herbs give the stew a depth that lingers on the tongue. It's like wrapping someone in a warm blanket. And here's a trick I learned from my grandma, a splash of apple cider vinegar. Not much, just a teaspoon. It lifts the flavors, makes everything taste more. It's my secret weapon, especially when I'm cooking without salt. As it all simmers together, the kitchen fills with that comforting smell, you know the one. It makes people poke their heads in and ask, what's cooking? That's when I know I've done something right. While it bubbles away, I chop up some kale. Leafy greens are a powerhouse for heart health, and they add such a beautiful green to the stew. I don't cook them too long, just enough to wilt. That way, they stay vibrant and full of nutrients. You know, as I stand here stirring, I can't help but think how much our relationship with food changes over time. When we're younger, we eat what's quick, what's tasty. But later, we start to think more about what's good for us. And sometimes, that shift feels like a loss. But I've come to believe it's actually a gift. Cooking this way, it's a way of saying I care. Not just about the flavor, but about the person eating it. About their heart, their health, their future. As the stew thickens, I give it a gentle stir, watching the broth cling to the vegetables, the steam curling up like a whisper, and I think of Dad, of how he used to serve me bowls of soup when I was sick, of how he used to wait at the kitchen table, tapping his fingers while something bubbled on the stove. Now, it's my turn to do the waiting, to ladle the stew into a bowl, carry it over, and watch his face as he tastes the first spoonful. Because that's the moment that matters, isn't it? The moment when care becomes comfort.
There's something really special about watching someone you love take that first bite, especially when it's something you made just for them. I still remember the way Dad held the spoon, slow and curious, like he wasn't quite sure what to expect. He looked up at me, eyebrows raised, then took a taste. And the smile. It was soft, grateful, the kind that says more than words can. He didn't say much, he never does, but I could tell. I could feel it. It was comfort. It was care. And it mattered. As we sat down to eat, he asked almost sheepishly, "Did you put any salt in this?" And I said, "Nope, not a grain." He just nodded and kept eating. That's the moment I realized flavor doesn't come from salt alone. It comes from attention, from layering, from the little things we add along the way. And more than anything, it comes from intention. While we ate, we talked about his latest doctor's visit. His blood pressure had been creeping up for a while now, and this time, the doctor had suggested medication. But Dad was hesitant. He's from that generation where pills feel like giving in. So I told him, let's meet in the middle. Let's use food as medicine first. And if it still doesn't budge, then we'll talk about the rest. That's what started this journey, not just for him, but for me too. I began digging deeper into how to build meals that support the heart without sacrificing taste or joy. And one of the first things I discovered, the power of fresh herbs. So after that first stew, I made a little change in our kitchen. I cleared off the windowsill and set up a few pots: basil, parsley, chives. Nothing fancy. Just enough to pluck a few leaves when I cook. And wow, what a difference. Chopped fresh parsley over a stew. Instant brightness. Chives in a soup. It gives a light oniony flavor without needing a seasoning packet. The key is learning how to wake up the ingredients with things other than salt. Citrus is another favorite. Just a squeeze of lemon or orange at the end of cooking can add that zing your taste buds are looking for. It's like giving the dish a little lift, a final note that ties it all together. And let's not forget about spices. I know some people get nervous around spices, worried they'll be too strong, too unfamiliar. But when you start with just a pinch, they're like quiet background singers, adding richness and rhythm without overpowering the dish. I started using smoked paprika for warmth, turmeric for color and subtle bitterness, even cumin sometimes when I want something a little earthy. These small touches go a long way in bringing depth to a low-sodium dish. Of course, all of this works best when you slow down. And I think that's something we often overlook, especially in a world that's always rushing. But good food takes time. Not necessarily hours in the kitchen, but intention. Stirring instead of microwaving. Tasting along the way. Letting things simmer so the flavors can get to know each other. That's one of the hidden gifts of cooking in this season of life. After 60, we're often given something we didn't have much of before: time. And with that time comes space to create, to nourish, and to love people through food. Now, one thing I often get asked is, how do you make something hearty and filling without relying on meat or heavy salt? And I get it sometimes. We want that stick to your ribs feeling. That's where legumes come in. Lentils, chickpeas, white beans, they're all wonderful additions to a stew or soup. They absorb flavor beautifully and provide that rich, satisfying texture we crave without needing extra sodium. In fact, one of my favorite variations of Dad's stew now includes a mix of cannellini beans and pearl barley. The beans give it creaminess, the barley gives it bite, and together they create a stew that feels indulgent but isn't. And if you're ever worried about things tasting flat, here's one more trick I swear by: roasting. Sometimes I'll roast the carrots and sweet potatoes before adding them to the pot. It brings out their natural sugars, deepens their flavor, and makes the whole dish taste like it's been cooking for hours even if it hasn't. Little things like that don't take much effort, but they make all the difference. Dad started requesting the stew once a week, not just because of how it tasted, but because of how it made him feel. Light yet full, comforted but not sluggish. And I started noticing changes too. His energy picked up. He seemed more engaged, more willing to go for those short walks the doctor kept suggesting. I know food isn't everything, but it sure is something. And here's the beautiful part: when we take care of others, something shifts inside us too. There's a quiet satisfaction that comes from nourishing someone you love. It's a reminder that we're still needed, still capable, still making a difference, even in the most ordinary of moments. So as I'm ladling the stew into bowls, sprinkling fresh herbs on top, and carrying it to the table, I realize it's not just food. It's a message that says, I see you, I care about you, I want you well. And I think that's what we're all looking for in this stage of life, isn't it? Not just good health, but good connection. Not just more years, but better ones. With meals that nourish, conversations that linger, and moments that remind us we're still writing the story one bite at a time. After a few weeks of making these low-sodium meals, I started to notice something unexpected. It wasn't just Dad who was changing, I was too. Cooking with more intention made me slow down, taste more, appreciate the ingredients, and in a strange but lovely way, I started to feel more present, more alive. That's the thing about caregiving: it might start as a way to help someone else, but it often ends up helping us just as much. One quiet evening, as we sat finishing the last of the stew, Dad leaned back in his chair and said, "You know, I didn't think but I look forward to it now." That may not sound like much, but from him, that was a standing ovation. The truth is, after 60, a lot of things start to shift: our routines, our appetites, our bodies. And sometimes those changes feel like limitations. We hear words like low sodium or restricted diet and think, ugh, there goes the fun. But it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. When we learn to cook with love, with fresh ingredients, and with a little bit of patience, we discover something far richer than what salt alone could ever bring. We find comfort in balance, joy in nourishment, and meaning in the small, steady act of showing up for someone else day by day, meal by meal. One thing I started doing after seeing how much Dad enjoyed the stew was writing down a few recipes. Nothing formal, just little notes scribbled in a spiral notebook. What I used, what I changed, how he reacted. Over time, it became a bit of a food diary, and I realized it wasn't just a collection of meals. It was a record of love, of effort, of moments shared across the kitchen table. I think all of us, especially as we get older, carry within us a deep well of memories tied to food. The meals we used to make, the ones our mothers or partners or siblings passed down, maybe even the ones we miss. And bringing those memories forward into new traditions, healthier ones, can be such a beautiful way to honor where we've been and where we're going. If you're watching this and thinking, but I'm not a cook, or I don't know where to start, I want to tell you this: you don't need to be fancy. You don't need special skills. All you need is the desire to care for yourself, for someone else, for both. Start with a pot. Add some olive oil, onions, garlic. Let the smell guide you. Let your heart guide you. And the rest will come. The beauty of a low-sodium meal is that it encourages creativity. You learn to lean into herbs, to experiment with spices, to roast, to caramelize, to brighten with citrus, or deepen with vinegar. It becomes more than cooking, it becomes expression. And it reminds you that you're still growing, still learning, still creating something meaningful. For Dad and me, it's no longer just about controlling blood pressure, though that's important. It's about spending time together. It's about me feeling like I can still give him something, even as the roles shift a little. And I think for him, it's about feeling cared for in a way that's gentle, not patronizing, quiet, but powerful. And maybe that's what we all need more of: gentle care. A warm bowl, a seat at the table, a reminder that we matter. If you're someone who's navigating your own health or helping a loved one do the same, I hope this little story gives you a sense of hope, of possibility. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. You don't have to cook every single meal from scratch. But you can start with one dish, one evening, one loving gesture. And if it brings a smile to someone's face or to your own, that's enough. That's more than enough. So now, when I make this stew, it's no longer just for Dad. It's for me too. It's for all of us trying to find ways to live well and love well, especially in these later chapters of life. As I rinse the last dish, wipe down the counter, and let the last bit of steam fade from the kitchen window, I think to myself, this is what real nourishment looks like. Not just the kind that fills your stomach, but the kind that fills your soul. There's something about the quiet after dinner that always feels a little sacred. The dishes are done, the kitchen lights are softer, and there's that lingering scent of stew in the air, like a gentle reminder of what just took place. That it wasn't just a meal, it was time shared. A little care, stirred slowly, spooned with love. Dad usually heads to his recliner after dinner, turns on the news, and half listens while reading one of his old mystery paperbacks. But now and then, he'll pause, look over, and say something like, "You've been good to me." And I'll just smile and say, that's what kids are for. But inside, those words mean everything. I think when we're younger, we imagine that showing love has to be grand or poetic. Big gestures, big speeches. But the older we get, the more we understand that the real kind of love is quiet. It's the meal prepped without being asked. The herbs trimmed just right. The extra container set aside for later. It's in the ordinary, over and over again. And that's what I hope you feel too. That you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you're taking the time to care, whether that's cooking for someone you love or for yourself, you're doing something that matters. Every low-sodium stew, every chopped veggie, every rinse of beans is an act of hope. You're saying, I want to feel better. I want you to feel better. I believe in healing, even in small, simmering ways. And let me tell you something from my heart to yours, it's never too late to start. Whether you're 60, 70, 80, or beyond, your health journey isn't behind you. It's right here, right now. Every time you reach for that olive oil instead of butter, or herbs instead of salt, or water instead of soda, you're rewriting your story in a kinder, gentler direction. And if you're a caregiver like me, I see you. It's not always easy. Some days, it's downright exhausting. But there's also beauty in this season. A different kind of closeness. A chance to connect on a level that doesn't need many words. Just a glance. A shared bowl. A quiet understanding. I encourage you, don't be afraid to bring your own traditions into these new healthier meals. If your dad or mom loved a certain stew growing up, think about how you can give it a low-sodium twist. If they always added dumplings, try using whole wheat. If they loved a rich broth, try infusing it with more vegetables and herbs. Keep the spirit of the recipe alive. Let it carry the memory while you carry the health forward. You'll find, like I did, that joy doesn't come from salt or sugar or indulgence alone. It comes from connection, from choosing to nourish, not just fill, and from watching someone you love feel good, not just for one evening, but day after day. Now, if you've made it to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your heart. Whether you're here for a recipe, for inspiration, or simply for a moment of connection, I'm so glad you stopped by. If this story touched you in any way, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Maybe you've made a similar change in your life. Maybe you're starting your journey now. Or maybe you just want to share your favorite stew memory. Whatever it is, your words are welcome here. And if you found this helpful, if it reminded you that healthy food can still feel like home, please take a second to give this video a like. It really helps this little corner of the internet reach more people who need a little encouragement. And if you'd like more stories, recipes, and real talk about nourishing ourselves and those we love, go ahead and subscribe. This community is for you. Because here's the truth, we all deserve meals that make us feel good, that make us feel cared for, that remind us that it's never too late to live well, love well, and eat well. So here's to the stew that started it all. To my dad's smile, to the herbs on the windowsill, to the quiet joy of a meal made with heart. And to you, wherever you are on this journey, may you always feel nourished, body and soul. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.